In the past 24 hours, Ukraine's defense forces have repelled about 30 Russian attacks in the Lyman, Bakhmut, Avdiivka and Marinka directions. The relevant statement was made by the General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine on Facebook, and Ukrinform correspondent reports. According to the General Staff, the fiercest battles for the Donetsk region's Bakhmut and Marinka continue. On the night of May 4, 2023, Russia launched another massive attack on Ukraine's territory, having fired 26 Shahed-136 131st unmanned combat aerial vehicles UCAVs. The Ukrainian military shot down 21 of them. Over the past day, Russian troops have launched 41 airstrikes and opened fire with multiple launch rocket systems (MLRS) about 25 times. Casualties among civilians were reported, as well as the damage caused to residential houses and other civil infrastructure. The threat of Russian air and missile strikes is persisting all over Ukraine. Meanwhile, Ukraine's Air Force launched 3 strikes on Russian personnel clusters. The Ukrainian military destroyed 5 enemy reconnaissance UAVs and 1 Lancet loitering munition. Ukrainian missile and artillery units hit 1 Russian personnel cluster and 1 ammunition depot. The General Staff of Ukraine's armed forces reported on April 30 that Russia had lost 190,510 troops in Ukraine since the beginning of its full-scale invasion on February 24 last year. This number includes 470 casualties Russian forces suffered just over the past day. According to the report, Russia also lost 3,699 tanks, 7,189 armored fighting vehicles, 5,842 vehicles and fuel tanks, 2,914 artillery systems, 544 multiple launch rocket systems, 295 air defense systems, 308 airplanes, 294 helicopters, 2,475 drones, and 18 boats. In the Volyn and Politia directions, no enemy offensive groupings were detected. Russian units continue to undergo training within the territory of Belarus. In the Siversky and Slobozhansky directions, Russian troops are maintaining military presence within the areas bordering with Ukraine. The enemy launched mortar and artillery strikes on the Chernihiv region's Buchki, the Sumy region's Basivka, Unikivka, Zapsalia, the Kharkiv region's Sotnitsky Kazakok, Hariv Kazakok, Baranivka, Chervona Zoria, Streleka, Patish, Bovchansky Kuduri and Mykolaievka. In the Kupiansk direction, Russian troops did not conduct offensive actions. The enemy launched mortar and artillery strikes on the Kharkiv region's Topoly, Kamyanka, Fyholivka, Vorotna, Zapadna, Lyman Pershi, Kyslivka, Krokmoln and Berestov. In the Lyman direction, Russian invaders conducted unsuccessful offensive actions near Bilohorivka to reveal some weak spots in Ukraine's defense. The enemy launched artillery strikes on the Luhansk region's Makivka, Bilohorivka, the Donetsk region's Torsky, Verkhnyokamyansk and Spern. In the Bakhmut direction, Russian troops continue offensive actions. In the city of Bakhmut, battles continue. The enemy launched an attack towards New York but had no success. In the Avdiivka direction, Russian occupiers conducted unsuccessful offensive actions near the Donetsk region's Severin. In the Marinka direction, Russian troops attempted to improve their tactical position. Ukrainian defenders repelled numerous enemy attacks near Marinka and Novomykhailivka. The enemy also opened fire on the Donetsk region's Krasnohorivka. In the Shakhtarsk direction, Russian invaders shelled the Donetsk region's Vuhledar, Bohayavlenka, Novokranka, Prekostivka, Shakhtarsk and Zolotonaiva. In the Zaporizhia and Kherson directions, Russian occupiers continue holding defense. The enemy shelling affected the Donetsk region's Vremivka, Novosilka and Novopil, the Zaporizhia region's Huliaipol, Molotokmichka, Novodanilivka, Orikhiv, Novoandriivka and Kamyansk, the Kherson region's Antonivka and the city of Kherson. In order to secure personnel against fire damage from Ukrainian forces, Russian troops continue deliberately using civilians. In the Kakhovka district settlements, Russian occupiers are deploying their units in between civilian detached houses. Ukrainian Air Force on Monday claimed that its forces destroyed 3 Russian anti-aircraft missile systems and bombarded nearly 7 clusters of enemy personnel in 24 hours. General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine said in its war update that its soldiers intercepted up to 19 missile strikes targeted at the civilian infrastructure. This came as the Kremlin-backed shadowy mercenaries group Wagner launched a barrage of artillery and mortar shelling in the town of Avdiivka. Russian Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu, in a press briefing, informed that the Russian fighters have been bolstering efforts to take control of the city of Artyomsk, or Bakhmut, 75% of which is now controlled by Wagner. Taking Artyomsk or Bakhmut under control will allow further offensive actions deep into the defense of the armed forces of Ukraine, he said. PMC Wagner has been launching assaults on the besieged town located approximately 10 kilometers, 4 miles to the south since September 2022. In its Monday update, Ukraine's General Staff warned that the threat of the targeting of civilian buildings by Russian missiles and of airstrikes remains very high. Russian forces have been strengthening the offensive around the regions of Lyman, Bakhmut, Avdiivka, and Marinka. Ukraine's military said that it deterred nearly 41 missile attacks. Bakhmut and Marinka have turned into the epicenter of hostilities, but the Ukrainian soldiers are continuing to hold the defensive positions. UA forces repulse 15 Kh-101 and Kh-555 cruise missiles. In the last 24 hours, Russia's fighters have launched 19 missile strikes, and Ukraine successfully repulsed 15 Kh-101 and Kh-555 cruise missiles, and at least 17 airstrikes. At most, 25 attacks were launched by the Ukrainian military on Russian positions using multiple launch rocket systems. Unfortunately, there were killed and injured civilians, including children, the General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine said. Multi-story residential buildings, private residential buildings, schools, hospitals, kindergartens, and other civil infrastructure were destroyed and damaged, it added. Last week, Ukraine's Air Force repelled nearly 30 missile attacks launched by the Russian forces, and in retaliation, the Ukrainian military launched 6 strikes on the areas of concentration of Russian personnel and military equipment. They also conducted assault operations on the towns of Kupiansk and Lyman, located in the vicinity of Novoselivsky, Kremenna, and Bilohorivka. Invading Russian forces also heavily shelled the ravaged towns of Vesel, Kupiansk, Krokmong-Pishain and Berestov Kharkiv Oblast, and Novoselivsky, Nevsky, Bilohorivka, Seversk and Spern in Luhansk. The settlements of Bakhmut, Ivanovsky, Bodanivka, and Hurahorivka have come under heavy Russian artillery fire, but they remained unsuccessful in offensive operations in the area of Predtekine. In January, Wagner founder Yevgeny Prigozhin announced that his forces completely captured the salt-mined city of Soledar. A cauldron has been formed in the center of the city, in which urban battles are being fought, Wagner chief said, referring to the Russian military term for the enclave of the fighters.